Welcome back to Free Media. I'm Robby Soave.
And I'm Amber Duke.
As the aftermath of the 2024 election continues, Democrats are engaging in plenty of infighting as they try and make sense of what they did wrong. Senator Bernie Sanders has fired back at House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's recent comments that she doesn't respect his criticism of the Democratic Party abandoning the working class.
Let's watch his response on NBC News' Meet the Press.
But I don't respect him saying that the Democratic Party has abandoned the working class families.
In the Senate in the last 2 years, we have not even brought forth legislation to raise the minimum wage to a living wage, despite the fact that some 20 million people in this country are working for less than $15 an hour. In America today, we have not brought, in the Senate, we have not brought to the floor the PRO Act to make it easier for workers to join unions. We're not talking about defined benefit pension plans so that our elderly can retire with security. We're not talking about lifting the cap on Social Security so that we can extend the solvency of Social Security and raise benefits. Bottom line, if you're an average working person out there, do you really think that the Democratic Party is going to the mats, taking on powerful special interests and fighting for you? I think the overwhelming answer is no.
So here's the thing, I often agree with Bernie Sanders' criticisms of the Democratic Party. I think he's right that Nancy Pelosi's wrong, that the Democratic Party obviously hasn't done any of the things he's mentioned, and that in order to make liberals more fired up, Democrats more excited about their party, working union type people more invested in the Democratic Party, doing those things would be tactically smart. But I also oppose just about every single one of the policies he just listed, and I think they would be bad for the country. I mean, we can start with the minimum wage. There should not be, in my view, a national minimum wage. I mean, I don't even really want a state-based minimum wage, but especially a national minimum wage, because the variance in how much your dollar is worth in different parts of this country. I mean, you can make an honest wage for a lower amount of money in places in the country where housing is less expensive and food is less expensive. That amount of money might be perfectly fine, and somewhere else it's not. It doesn't make sense at all to me to have one across the board lowest rate you could be paid.
Well, we've already seen the market correct for inflation anyway, to an extent, because you can get a job working at McDonald's for $15 an hour, as a teenager now, which is obviously well above the federal minimum wage. So yeah. I don't even know what he's complaining about. Most working class people are not working in minimum wage jobs, as much as the left loves to say that. They're like, oh, well, the average person who works a minimum wage job is a 27-year-old woman. And well, do you know how averages work? It's because most of them are teenagers. Yeah. And then unfortunately, there's some elderly people who, for whatever reason, are trying to supplement their Social Security income. Right. Some people just want part-time work, or they're younger people and they want to get. I don't think the left thinks it's criminal. It's insane that any teenager should ever have to do a job, which just doesn't make sense at all. We all grew up, our parents grew up doing summer jobs. It's healthy. Yeah. You pay them less money, and they're not breadwinners for a primary income family type situation, and that's fine. And I would not make that kind of labor illegal, as many progressives want to do. Yeah, and what's amazing about Bernie Sanders' prescriptions for the working class is that they inevitably make things worse for the working class. For example, he would advocate for the type of massive government spending and subsidization that was done through the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan. Well, according to MIT Sloan and Johns Hopkins, those two bills were responsible for at least 50% of the current inflation. So he's 100%. Advocating for a democratic socialist agenda that means increasing government spending well beyond its current levels, which is already way too high, which is a reason why people's prices are 20% higher over the past 4 years.
And on top of that, a massive transfer of wealth from younger people to older people. Maybe this is a story or something that Republicans can pick up on as Donald Trump did better with young males, with young workers, is that the Democratic Party or people like Bernie Sanders want to engage in this endless expansion of the welfare state for elderly Americans in a way that is bankrupting, that is lowering the opportunity threshold for young people, their opportunity to have enough income to buy homes, to start families. And I just think that's totally the wrong way to order society, to take from people at the beginning, to crush them under that pressure for older generations that had the opportunity to accumulate a lot of wealth during a time when it was easier to do so by some stretches of the imagination, by having less regulation in key sectors. They had their time, and it just seems totally backward to me.
But what these people don't seem to understand about working class Americans, particularly union employees, is they really don't want a handout.
Yeah.
They just want a fair playing system, and they want an opportunity. They want to have the ability to work without being taxed to death. They don't want their union bosses pilfering from them and stealing from their pension accounts. And some of them don't want to join a union. And these are all valid decisions. And the Democrats instead want to overregulate and tax these people to death for the sake of a cash transfer. Like, at the same time that he's saying they're abandoning the working class, he wants plumbers to pay for the graduate degrees of art majors.
Yeah.
Like, it's absolutely nuts. And then they totally ignore the cultural dimension here, too. People who work in a Ford plant in Michigan don't give a shit about you paying for transgender surgeries of illegal immigrants in prison.
They care about it, just not in a way that benefits Democrats.
And I know the Democrats are like, oh my gosh, well, nobody said that they were going to do that. Well, actually, Kamala Harris did say she would do it. And when she was asked about it on the campaign trail, she said she would let the law decide. So, I mean, they just ignore all of the crazy woke stuff that the Democrats are doing. So, like, even if you are talking to the working class with an economic populist message, if you're pairing that with cultural insanity, sorry, they don't want that.
I think it's also important to remember that unions have become major political contributors to Democratic causes, and it's not just like they'll say unions are advocating for your job, for better conditions for you.
Wrong.
Wait, so why? Right. So of course they shouldn't have the choice. They don't need the choice about whether to join the union because it's in their best interest. And I'll be like, well, what if this union is is getting involved in education politics and is in favor of policies that you don't want in your schools? They're supposed to just myopically support it because they're union employees. They clearly don't. They don't want to support those causes, and so yes, it should be. If you want to join a union, that's fine. Unions, I'm against public sector unions. Private sector unions, that's fine. Unions can be a valid way to rebalance things in favor of workers as they advocate for their own interests. There's nothing wrong with that in a vacuum. It's a little bit different for public employees where the incentives are so there's no union for the taxpayer looking out for how much of our income's going to get cannibalized. But that's fine. But some people don't want to be part of it, and they should absolutely have that choice.
And Democrats don't seem to understand, too, that union leadership is really divorced from union members to a very significant degree. I mean, if you just look at what happened with the United Auto Workers Union, right? They came out and endorsed Kamala Harris. Their membership was livid because none of them supported them. And the Teamsters actually did a poll of their membership and found that, 65% supported Trump.
Yes.
And instead of endorsing Trump, they were like, well, we're not going to endorse anybody then. And you talk to the actual UAW members who work at these auto plants, and they say, well, we know that an electric vehicle mandate is going to kill us, and our leadership is endorsing the candidate who supported an electric vehicle mandate. So they conflate a union boss with the broader membership, and that's why another reason why I think they're so out of touch.
No electric vehicle mandates. Hear that, Elon Musk, as he becomes the shadow president? That's the one bad thing he could do if it ends up being more subsidies for electric vehicles. I don't want to see that. If they catch on their own, that's fine. No government support for them. We'll be back with more free media right after this.